Few people in our congregation would believe me if I told them what I'm about to tell you. And honestly, a year ago, I wouldn't have believed myself either. See, my wife, Anna, wasn't just a parishioner at St. Matthew's, she was the parishioner. The one always arranging flowers before Sunday service, organizing charity drives, bringing homemade pies to the bake sale, and staying behind to help Father Daniel lock up. She had a way of making everyone feel like they mattered. I used to joke that if the Pope himself visited our small town, Anna would have a reserved seat in the front pew next to him. That's how respected she was. We'd been married for 8 years. I trusted her more than anyone on earth. And every Sunday, sitting beside her as sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows, I thought, this is what a blessed life feels like. Until one Thursday evening, I drove past the church at 9:15 p.m. Far later than any meeting or choir rehearsal should have been running, and saw her car parked out front. The building was dark except for a faint amber glow spilling from a side window near the rectory. And that's when I saw a shadow cross the curtain. A man's silhouette. Not Father Daniel. Not any of the older parish helpers I knew. Someone younger. Taller. Broad-shouldered. My stomach tightened. Anna had told me she was meeting the women's committee at Lisa's house across town. So why was she here? And why was there a man in the rectory with her, at night, alone? I told myself I'd wait, that maybe there was an innocent reason. But deep down, a cold, heavy feeling had already started spreading through my chest. I didn't know it then, but that night was the first loose thread in a tapestry I thought was unshakable. And once I started pulling, everything, my marriage, my faith, my trust, would begin to unravel. When Anna came home that night, she was humming. Actually humming, like she'd just had the most relaxing evening of her life. She dropped her purse on the kitchen counter, kicked off her flats, and kissed me on the cheek. Women's committee went late, she said casually, reaching for the kettle. We were planning the Easter fundraiser. I didn't say anything at first. I just watched her fill the kettle, her hands steady, her eyes bright. No sign of guilt. No flinch. Finally, I asked, was it at Lisa's place? She nodded, pouring water into the kettle. Lisa made those little almond cookies you like. The first lie. Because I'd driven past Lisa's house on my way home earlier, no lights, no cars, nothing. And just an hour later, I'd seen Anna's car sitting outside the church. I kept my voice even. You weren't at the church tonight? She paused for a fraction of a second. Just long enough for me to notice. No, why would I be? She said, turning her back to me and fussing with the tea bags. There it was again, that small, almost invisible crack in her perfect composure. The way her tone shifted, the way she didn't meet my eyes. I wanted to press her. I wanted to tell her I'd been there, that I'd seen her car, that I'd seen him. But something in me decided to wait. Because if Anna was lying, and my gut screamed that she was, then this was bigger than one evening. And if I played it right, I could catch the whole truth. The kettle began to whistle, steam rising between us. She turned, smiling faintly, holding out a mug. You're quiet tonight. Everything okay? I took the tea and sipped it slowly, forcing a smile back. Everything's fine. But inside, I was already planning my next move. I didn't sleep much that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that amber glow in the rectory window, and the shadow moving behind it. By morning, I'd made up my mind, I wasn't going to confront Anna without proof. If she could look me in the eye and lie so easily, then any half-truth she fed me now would just be another layer of the mask. The first step was simple. I took a long lunch break and drove into town. There's a small electronics shop on Main Street, the kind of place that sells everything from old radio parts to motion-detecting wildlife cameras. The clerk was an older guy named Hal. I told him I needed a camera for keeping an eye on a storage shed, left out the part about it being the church. He handed me a tiny black unit no bigger than a deck of cards. Battery-powered. Night vision. Motion activated. You could hide this in a bookshelf and no one would notice, he said with a grin. That was exactly what I planned to do. Friday night, I told Anna I'd be staying late at work to finish paperwork. Instead, I parked 2 blocks from St. Matthew's and walked the rest of the way, sticking to the shadows. The church was dark and quiet, the heavy wooden doors locked. I circled around to the side entrance, the one that led to the small library just past the rectory hall. I'd been helping Father Daniel catalog donated books a few months back, so I still had the spare key in my glove box. I let myself in, the air cool and faintly scented with old hymnals. In the far corner, wedged between a dusty Bible concordance and a stack of parish newsletters, I found the perfect spot. The camera's black lens blended into the dark spines of the books. If you didn't know it was there, you'd never see it. I set it to record only when motion passed in front of it, which, from this angle, meant anyone walking into the rectory hallway or slipping into the side rooms. When I left the church that night, the whole place looked as innocent as ever. But now, it would be watching. And if my gut was right, by next week I'd know exactly who that man was, and what my wife was doing alone with him after dark. I'd been checking the camera's memory card every couple of days, half expecting to find nothing but empty hallways. By Tuesday night, I was starting to wonder if maybe I'd imagined it all, that maybe the shadow I saw was nothing sinister. Then Thursday came. That evening, Anna told me she had another women's committee meeting. She kissed me on the cheek, smiling like she always did, and drove off in her little silver sedan. I waited 20 minutes before heading to the church. Not to confront her, just to retrieve the camera. The library was as still as the day I'd left it. The camera's tiny green light blinked once when I picked it up, the signal that it had been recording. My pulse jumped. Back home, I closed the office door and slid the memory card into my laptop. The first few clips were boring, Father Daniel walking by with a stack of folders, an older parishioner dropping off a bag of canned goods. Then, at 9:12 p.m., the motion sensor kicked on. Anna. She came in through the side entrance, glancing over her shoulder before closing the door. She wasn't carrying her usual tote bag full of paperwork. Instead, she clutched her phone and a small paper sack. Less than a minute later, he appeared. Tall, broad-shouldered, younger than I'd guessed. Jeans, a navy sweater. Definitely not Father Daniel. They spoke briefly, low and close, and then he followed her down the hall, the same direction as the rectory sitting room. The next clip was 20 minutes later. Anna came back into view first, her hair a little messier, her face flushed. She adjusted her blouse like she'd just remembered it wasn't sitting right. The man followed, smiling faintly, and reached out to brush something from her cheek. I froze the frame. My stomach turned. There was no hugging, no kissing on camera, nothing anyone could call proof in a court of law. But the way she looked at him, the way she didn't look worried about being caught, it told me enough. The woman I'd married, the one our whole church saw as an example of devotion and morality, was hiding something, and she was hiding it here, in the one place I thought she would never betray me. I shut the laptop and sat in the dark for a long time, listening to the faint ticking of the wall clock. I had the first piece of the puzzle. Now I just had to figure out how far this went. Saturday evening, Anna mentioned she'd be helping set up for Sunday service and might be home late. It was the kind of thing I'd heard dozens of times before, and normally I wouldn't have thought twice. But now, knowing what I'd seen on the camera, those words felt like a loaded gun pointed straight at my trust. I told her I might work late in the garage, maybe order takeout for myself. She kissed my cheek, grabbed her keys, and drove off, same silver sedan, same calm, sweet demeanor. I waited 15 minutes, then slipped out to my own car and followed the route toward the church, keeping several cars between us. She turned into the church parking lot, but didn't park in her usual spot by the main entrance. Instead, she pulled around to the far side, near the unlit back doors. She got out, carrying a tote bag this time, not full of committee folders, but heavy-looking, like it held something more solid. The man from the video was already there, leaning against the wall in that navy sweater, scrolling his phone. I stayed far enough back that they wouldn't notice me, but close enough to watch her walk straight into his arms. No hesitation. No looking around. They didn't kiss, but the way he held her, one arm tight around her waist, told me this wasn't their first embrace. They disappeared inside the side door together, laughing at something I couldn't hear. I didn't follow them in. Not yet. Instead, I drove a slow loop around the block, parking half a street away where I could see that same side entrance. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. 40. When they finally came back out, the tote bag was gone, left inside for whatever setup they were pretending to do. They stood there talking in low voices, his hand brushing her arm in a way that made my jaw tighten. Then they walked to his car, not hers, and drove off together into the night. I started the engine and followed, careful to hang back. They didn't go to any restaurant or meeting place in town. They drove past Main Street, past the last lit gas station, and headed down the narrow road toward the lake cabins, the ones our parish sometimes rented for retreat weekends. When his car pulled into the gravel driveway of the third cabin, they both got out. She glanced around once, then unlocked the door with a key. A key. She hadn't borrowed it tonight, she'd already had it. That told me more than I wanted to know. I sat there in my car, engine off, watching through the windshield as the cabin door shut behind them. The place was dark for a few seconds, then a warm yellow light flicked on inside. Every instinct in me screamed to get out, storm up to that door, and blow the whole thing apart right then and there. But something held me back. It wasn't fear. It wasn't mercy. It was the part of me that remembered the look on Anna's face when she lied about Lisa's house, and how easy it was for her to spin a story. If I caught her now, she'd have a dozen excuses ready before I could even process what I was seeing. She'd twist it, make it about me being paranoid, about me following her. No, if I was going to confront her, I needed a moment that spoke for itself. A moment so clear she couldn't talk her way out of it. So I stayed. The cabin's curtains didn't fully close. Through the thin gap between the panels, I caught glimpses, shadows moving close together, her silhouette leaning against his arm draped around her shoulders. At one point, she walked into view holding a wine bottle and 2 glasses. He took them from her, set them down, and pulled her close. The gap in the curtain was too narrow to see more, but I didn't need to. 2 hours passed before the lights went out completely. The night swallowed the cabin, leaving only the faint orange glow from the wood stove inside. I sat there in the cold, the only sound the ticking of my dashboard clock. Every tick was another nail in the coffin of the woman I thought I knew. Finally, near midnight, I started the car and drove away. I had no proof beyond what I'd seen through that slit in the curtain, but I had enough to know this wasn't just suspicion anymore. This was real. And I was done pretending I didn't see it. The next few days, Anna was all smiles. She talked about how productive the committee had been, how much she loved the church's sense of community. Her voice was sweet, her eyes steady, the perfect mask. I didn't challenge her. I didn't even hint that I'd followed her. Instead, I went back to Hal's electronics shop and bought a second camera, this one smaller, with a clip and a long-life battery. The trick was getting it inside the cabin without her knowing. I got my chance on Wednesday afternoon when I stopped by St. Matthew's under the pretense of donating some canned goods. I knew she was at work. The church office was empty except for a few envelopes on the desk. And there, hanging on the wall, was the ring of spare keys for the parish properties. Including the cabins. I'd helped fix a busted heater in cabin 3 last winter, so I knew exactly which key I needed. I slipped it off the ring, made a quick stop at the hardware store for a duplicate, and returned the original before anyone was the wiser. That night, I drove out to the cabins when I knew no one would be around. The air smelled of pine and damp earth. Inside, cabin 3 was exactly as I remembered: small living area, kitchenette, and a bedroom in the back. I clipped the camera to the inside of a bookshelf in the living room, angled so it covered both the couch and the doorway to the bedroom. From that position, anyone sitting, kissing, or, doing more, would be in full view. By the time I left, the place looked untouched. The camera's lens was smaller than a pea, invisible unless you knew where to look. All I had to do now was wait. And sure enough, I didn't have to wait long. The very next evening, Anna mentioned another late setup for the church. I kissed her cheek, wished her luck, and watched her drive away. 2 hours later, from the safety of my locked office at home, I logged into the camera feed. The little red light in the corner of the screen told me it was recording. And then, they walked in. Laughing. Touching. Her hand on his chest, his on her hip. Not a shadow through a curtain this time, clear, undeniable, high-definition truth. My jaw tightened as they sank into the couch together. I let the camera run. I sat there in my office, the glow from the laptop screen making the rest of the room feel darker than it really was. On the feed, Anna kicked off her shoes and curled her legs onto the couch, leaning into him like she'd done it 100 times before. They talked for a while. I couldn't hear them, but I didn't need to. His hand rested on her knee, her fingers toyed with the collar of his sweater. The kind of easy intimacy that doesn't happen overnight. Then she reached for the tote bag she'd brought, the same one I'd seen that first night. Out came 2 wine glasses and a bottle of Merlot. She poured, handed him a glass, and clinked hers against it with a smile I hadn't seen in years. I felt something twist in my chest, not just anger, but a kind of grief. That smile used to be mine. After a few sips, they were closer. Her head on his shoulder, his lips brushing her hair. And then, no more pretending. He kissed her. She kissed him back. Slowly at first, then deeper, her hands sliding up to the back of his neck. I didn't watch the whole thing. I didn't need to see the rest to know exactly where it was going. I just let the camera run, timestamp after timestamp burning into the memory card. When I closed the laptop, I sat in silence for a long time. I could have confronted her that night. I could have driven to the cabin, camera in hand, and ended it. But something told me to wait, to let her think she was still safe, still clever. Because when I confronted her, it wouldn't be in private. It would be where her mask mattered most. Somewhere she couldn't spin her lies without an audience to watch them fall apart. That's when the idea hit me. Sunday service. Once the idea took root, I couldn't think about anything else. For years, Anna had built her image inside those church walls, the devoted helper, the loyal wife, the shining example of faith. If she was going to betray me there, it only felt right that the truth should come out there too. But I couldn't just stand up mid-sermon and yell, "She's cheating." That would make me look unhinged, and it would give her the opening to cry about private matters, and twist the narrative. No. I needed them to see what I'd seen. And I needed to do it in a way she couldn't stop. I spent Friday night pulling the camera's footage onto a small USB drive. Just the key moments, her arriving with him, the wine, the couch, the kiss. Nothing explicit, but enough to remove all doubt. Saturday afternoon, I stopped by the church under the guise of dropping off a box of canned goods for the food drive. In the small office next to the vestibule, the old projector sat on a wheeled cart. I knew how to set it up. I'd helped with the slideshow during last year's Christmas service. That night, I tested the files at home. The grainy footage projected on the wall was still clear enough to see everything. When her smile lit up the screen, leaning into him, my stomach turned, but I knew it would be worth it. Sunday morning, I got dressed like normal. Anna was already up, cheerful as ever, wearing the pale blue dress everyone in the parish complimented her on. "You'll be in the front pew with me today, right?" she asked, brushing past with her perfume lingering in the air. "Wouldn't miss it," I said. And I meant it. I arrived early, just ahead of her. The projector was already in the storage room where I'd left it, hidden behind a stack of folding chairs. All I had to do was wheel it out, plug in the USB, and wait for the right moment. And when that moment came, it wouldn't just be me seeing the truth. It would be every single person who thought Anna was untouchable. Sunday service started like any other. The organ hummed softly as people shuffled into the pews, offering warm smiles and quiet greetings. Anna glided down the aisle, stopping to hug Mrs. Connolly, pat young James on the head, and adjust the flowers at the altar. If you didn't know better, you'd think she was an angel descended into St. Matthew's just to bless the place. Father Daniel began with the usual readings. Anna sat beside me, folding her hands, lips moving silently along with the hymns. And then came the moment, the announcements section, when the congregation's attention was focused on community updates. I slipped away quietly, wheeling the projector out from the side room. The hum of the machine was drowned out by Father Daniel's voice. I connected it to the small pull-down screen at the front, right next to the pulpit. "Actually, Father," I said, stepping forward, "I've prepared something important for the congregation to see." Anna turned toward me, a faint question in her eyes, but also, for the briefest moment, a flicker of nervous recognition. The screen lit up. The first frame appeared, the cabin door opening, Anna stepping inside with him. A ripple of confusion spread through the room. Next frame, them on the couch, the wine glasses, her leaning into him. Gasps. Murmurs. Someone whispered, "That's Anna." And then the kiss. Clear. Unmistakable. The room went silent except for the whir of the projector fan. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The footage played for less than a minute before I shut it off, leaving only the stunned faces of our congregation and Anna's pale, frozen expression. "Everything you've just seen happened during the times Anna told me she was working for the church," I said quietly. "I thought you all deserved to know the truth." Anna stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. "Tom, stop this," she began, her voice cracking. But it was too late. The mask had shattered. The silence in that church was heavier than any sermon pause I'd ever heard. Every eye was on Anna, the woman they'd trusted, admired, practically sainted. Her lips moved like she was trying to speak, but no sound came out. Then, finally. "It's not what it looks like." That was the wrong thing to say. Because the footage had been exactly what it looked like. Murmurs started up again, sharper this time. A couple of the older women exchanged glances that said everything. Mr. Connolly shifted uncomfortably and looked away. Even Father Daniel's face had drained of color, he didn't defend her. I stepped down from the front, not even looking at her as I passed. My hands were steady, my voice calm. "I'll be gone before you get home. Your things will be on the porch." Anna reached for my arm, but I pulled away. The congregation parted as I walked down the aisle, the weight of their silence following me to the door. Outside, the sunlight hit me like cold water. My heart was pounding, but there was also a strange, clean emptiness in my chest, the space where doubt used to live. By the time Anna got back that afternoon, her clothes were in boxes by the front steps. The house keys sat on top. She didn't knock. She just stood there for a moment, staring at the boxes, and then walked away without a word. I filed for divorce the next morning. Word spread fast in our small town. People who used to greet her warmly now crossed the street or kept conversations short. She stopped showing up at St. Matthew's altogether. For me, the weeks that followed were quiet. Peaceful. No more late meetings, no more second-guessing my own instincts, no more pretending everything was fine. In the end, I didn't need to raise my voice, throw accusations, or fight for the truth. I just showed it to the people she'd built her life around, and let the truth do the rest. Anna had chosen the church as the place to betray me. So I chose the church as the place to bury the lie.